Hey, it's Cade, and this is my PowerPoint on rivers, more specifically the Mississippi River. The reading for this week was about the Mississippi River and the Atchafalaya. Um, it kind of goes over like a sort of history and things like that about the Mississippi River and Atchafalaya and the area around it. And it also gives like a first-hand story about the narrator who was um, riding on a boat through the Atchafalaya and Mississippi River. All right, so I want to start off talking about the Atchafalaya. So it's a distributary of the Mississippi River. It's connected to the Mississippi River. Um, so it caused a lot of problems for the Mississippi River, which affected the people and the area around the Mississippi River. It was sort of like trying to take take over, in a sense, the Mississippi River, and it was sort of depleting it, like it was um, depleting the Mississippi River, and like the Mississippi River was sort of going into it in a way. Um, so different people and things were trying to had to come up with ways to fix it and solve these problems that are going on. Like, because if the Mississippi River gets messed up, then a lot of other things get messed up because the Mississippi River is such an important part of not just Mississippi and New Orleans, but like um, all the states that it's connected to, all the way up and in several different directions. All right, now I'm going to go over you know, the control of the river. Who was in control of what was done with it and things like that. So the main people who were in control were the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Um, they had the main control over what was going on with the river and things like that. Um, so they controlled, like, when they got these structures and things in place, like you can see in some of these pictures, um, these structures to control how much um, the Mississippi River was going into the Atchafalaya, because of, like I said before, like the Atchafalaya was basically depleting, in a way, the Mississippi River, um, which was affecting a lot of things. So they had to step in and they had to create these structures and then find all sorts of ways to try and help prevent not only problems with Atchafalaya but other things going on with the Mississippi River, um, things like that, and the flow of the Mississippi River. Some people, they said this in the reading. Some people wanted more flow or less flow. It just depends. So they were in control of all of that. And they made these structures, and um, they were the ones who were making sure nothing bad was happening and things like that. They were in charge of all of that. And then eventually the Mississippi River Commission came along, and they sort of not took over, but like they also were involved in it, and this was more civilian, some more civilian commission compared to the Army Corps of Engineers, which still had civilians in it, but the Mississippi River Convention was more like that. So it added some more voices, I guess. I don't know the other word to use, but sort of more voices to from people who live in the area and things like that. So now I'm gonna kind of go over with living with the river. Kind of go over how the river affected people and things like people, because the Mississippi River is a very important thing. It was more important back then because it was used for so many things like travel and transport. Because it was a very had a wide range because it extends from almost the top of the United States all the way down to the bottom to the Gulf of Mexico, and it has all these other rivers that connect into it from other areas. So it has a large reach. So it's not just used by Mississippi or anything like that. Like it was used by a lot of people. Like these steamboats here we see travel, and now it's even used for casinos. Turning old, like there's casinos that is an old boat that they just turn into a casino because you can't have casinos on land, has to be near the water, so they just did that. And all sorts of things. The Mississippi River is used for all sorts of things, and so it was an important part. So, and they created special boats to get past different, like fallen trees and other things like that. And floods were a thing that affected a lot of people around the Mississippi River and its connected areas. So they had to work around that and find ways to prevent that, like levees and things used like that to help protect people. So there's all these many uses of the river, and obviously these problems with the Atchafalaya would have caused some big issues because of how important the Mississippi River was. I think that's gonna wrap it up, and sorry if my voice is a little weird through this. I'm not feeling too great, but alright, thank you.